In this video, I'm going to show you how to mix colors for a complementary color chart. Before you start, you're going to lay out your paper. You're going to draw 3 rectangles with 3 columns, 5 rows, and 1-inch squares. For the column I'm going to demonstrate, I'm going to use the complementary pairs of red and green. Now I want you to know too that the video has been sped up just a little bit. I mean, I mix colors fast, but this is even a little fast for me. What I'm doing here is I made up a green, by mixing yellow and blue. Now whenever you're mixing colors, you always want to start with a lighter color. Like if you're mixing yellow and any other color, always start with yellow and add that more saturated, more intense, darker color to it. So the reason I'm playing around with this mixture of green is I want to come up with a green that when I mix it with the red, it makes a really, really good neutral. So by neutral, I mean a brown or a gray. Neutral is a color that you cannot name except for brownish or grayish. And I'm looking for a neutral that doesn't look like red and it doesn't look like green. Now the first brown that I mixed, I wasn't totally satisfied with it because I felt it was a little too warm, a little too yellow. Because of that, I added more blue in with my green. So now, you see, I am working on making that perfect neutral. And I also want to mix enough green and enough of that neutral to get me through the entire color chart. So this color chart, one of the columns will have the pure hues, put the primary on the top, like I'm doing, so the red's on the top, and then I'm going to put the secondary color on the bottom. Now, I will only be demonstrating one chart for you. And the reason is I want you to be able to apply what you're seeing me do when you make your charts for yellow and purple and blue and orange. Those are the other 2 pairs of complementary colors. So one of the ways you learn to mix colors is by experimenting on your own, and trying different things. So here I am, I'm placing that neutral, sort of a dark grayish brown. Again, with neutrals you really can't name what color it is exactly. Now you may be wondering, well, what I'm going to do with the other columns, and we'll get to that. Now, this is very important. In those 2 open squares between the red and between the pure, that neutral right in the middle, I want to make a darker red, a darker, duller red by mixing some green with the red. Now I want that color to be halfway between the red and that brownish neutral. So I've come up with that color there. I'm going to see what that looks like. And that seems fine. So it's kind of a dark, rich burgundy color, red. Now the paints I'm using are Utrecht paints, and this is my favorite red. It's a primary red, and it's called a quinacridone red. The blue I'm using is an ultramarine blue. Now ultramarine blues are slightly warmer than what you may have, which is a primary blue, and they're warmer than something we call a phthalo blue. So depending on your red and depending on your blue, your colors may look different than mine. The main thing to remember is that the neutral goes in the center. Now I'm looking for a color that's somewhere between the green that I mixed and that neutral. And it really should look like kind of like a dull, drab olive green. Now, one of the things you'll discover about color mixing is that you can make a color lighter, you can make a color darker, you can make a color duller, but you cannot make a color brighter. All right, so there I go. I got my first column done. Now, what I did when I mixed my colors, I'm just fixing an edge there. What I did when I mixed my colors is I made sure I made enough green, and then I made enough of the neutral, and I also made enough of the dull dark red and enough of that olive kind of green, because I'm going to be using those for the other two columns. Now, the other two columns will be tints. And in the row of tints, we're going to have one row that'll be sort of a medium value tint, and that's what I'm working on now. And then the last row will be a very light tint. Now the challenge is going to be, you need to make the value of all your tints the same. Okay, so you have to experiment with that a little bit. So each tint, see now I'm grabbing some of that darker dull red and I'm mixing the white into that, and then I'm checking it. You see how I hold my brush there? I'm checking it to make sure it's the same value as that pink tint. So this makes a really beautiful color. It's like we call it a mauve. It's like a dusty kind of rose color. All right, now I'm mixing some white into my neutral, and again, trying to get that same value. Yep, looks good. Now, you have to understand that I have decades of paint mixing experience behind me. So I've got those neural pathways. They're like freeways in my brain for mixing colors, right? Because I use them so much. Now, you're just learning this, so this is going to take you more trial and error than it does me. So when you see what I just did was I took some of that dull olive kind of drab green, and I mixed some white in there to make the same value tint, and I painted that square. And finally I'm going to add the white to my green, and I'm working on getting that same, just working on getting the same value. I wasn't quite satisfied, so it looks like I added a little more white to it. All right, so I'm playing around with that a little bit, making sure I get the correct value, and that looks better. Now for this color chart, I'm using a flat brush, and you'll notice I'm not using tape. I don't want you to use tape for this. It's so much more important to learn to mix the correct colors than it is to have really super straight rows. Okay, and with that said, try to stay within the squares the best you can, but I'm not going to grade you on neatness, but I will be grading you on the whether or not your values of your tints are the same for the entire column. I will be grading you on whether or not your neutral in that center row is a neutral. Okay, and the colors that are between, for instance, the green and the neutral, that needs to be kind of right between them. Think of it like a scale of notes, like do, re, mi, fa, so. Okay, I think that's 5 notes. Sorry about my singing. But each different color should be an interval, and they should be even. Remember, with the neutral right in the middle. Okay, so right now I'm working on my column that is the lighter tints. You see, I'm kind of messing around with that, some of those colors, making sure that I add enough white in there. And you see now why it's so important to mix enough. of the colors, before you get started, because if you do, you'll have to remix. And you don't want to have to remix your colors. So that is super important. All right. I wasn't quite satisfied with that one. I'm playing around, making it a little bit darker, a little bit duller for that center one. So I found that center neutral on that light column. It just looked a little bit pinkish to me, and I really wanted to make it more neutral. So that's why I went back and just added a tad more green to that. And so now this is my last square with my light pale pink tint at the top, and the values of all my tints match. That's it. So much fun.